introduction. Before I start, I'd like to introduce my wife of 55 years. Carol is sitting over here. And we have 18 grandchildren. We brought 2 of them with us, Linda and Lisa. What a wonderful opportunity to come visit with some people who won't be asking me to expand the size of government. You know, this year on January 1st, it wasn't a very good year for those of us who like less government, because 40,000 new laws went into effect on January 1st. So I'm looking for the opportunity, if I am to be your president, I'd like to eliminate 40,000 laws off the books. You know, the Federal Register expands exponentially regardless of who's in office. But I would like to be the very first president that actually shrunk the Federal Register. Of course, to do that, we have to reassess what our government's supposed to be doing. You know, we had a revolution way back because our founders didn't like what the king was doing. And they wanted to shrink the government, and they did. And they said the government should be very limited. And it was to be limited for the sole purpose of protecting our liberty, not to run our lives and spend our money. It was to keep a very small government. If you were to have any government of significance, it would be local. It wouldn't come from the federal government, and it certainly wouldn't come from the United Nations either. We're in the midst of an economic crisis. It's not just in the United States, it's worldwide, but we're very much involved. And the bubble is bigger than ever before. And it's mainly related to the monetary system, because since 1971, our dollar has had no relationship at all to anything of real value. That is when the last vestige of the gold standard was removed in 1971, the time I was convinced that government would grow exponentially, and it actually motivated me to run for Congress in the 1970s because of the size and scope of government. Now, what has it led to? It's led to a government that's out of control. The spending is out of control. We have failed to follow the admonition that you know of Jefferson, that our lives and our liberties come from our Creator, not the government. And guess what? The consequence of that would be, if we have a right to our lives and a right to our liberty, we're supposed to have a right to the fruits of our labor. That's what we're supposed to have. And if we truly own our own lives, that means that we have a right to lead a life as we so choose, and we would be able to spend our money as we choose. Today, though, because the government is so big and the Federal Reserve exists and buys all the debt, and that there's no limits to the spending of government, we now have this worldwide phenomenon where we were able to print the money, still are, and others would take it as if it were gold, and it isn't, and it's coming to an end. That's what these last 4 years have signaled. Yes, we'd inflate and spend our way out of some of the recessions, but this one isn't working. It was expected. It was predictable. We're in this mess, and guess what I believe is the absolutely necessary thing to do to get this back in order? That is, cut the spending. You have to cut spending. So the first year, I'd like to start off with a token effort at cutting like $1 trillion in 1 year. But what have they been talking about? What have the other candidates talked about? Yeah, they talk about a little bit of cutting. The people in Washington talk about cutting. The administration talks about cutting. But guess what? It's all deception. They're not talking about cutting anything other than the proposed increases. They have accepted the notion that we have baseline budget, which means all our spending automatically goes up for the next 10 years to the tune of about $10.5 trillion. Automatically increase. So if they cut a $10 trillion increase by $1 trillion over 10 years, they say they've cut something. And people yell and scream and say, oh my goodness, they're ruining the budget, they're cutting everything. But they're cutting $1 trillion out of 10 over 10 years. That's $100 billion a year. Guess what? Our national debt is going up at, on average, $100 billion every month. And in February of this year, we just finished February, it went up $200 billion. It's totally out of control, and it won't last, and that is why fiscal conservatives has to come back into vogue. We as Republicans and conservatives have talked about it for a long time, but I don't think we live up to our promises. We've had some chances, but we've expanded the government, and when we've been in charge, the national debt has gone up. We've doubled the size of the Department of Education. Now, I'm all for education, but to tell you what, from my understanding, there is no authority for the Department of Education. That's one of the ones I want to get rid of.